Well, good morning, sons, or who else might be catching this video this morning or tomorrow or down the calendar line sometime. It is Monday morning, September 20th, 2021, as we're into our Jesus is Better series to number 102, as we're in the second part of our conclusion of this study entitled Christ, the Last and Forever Covenant, a tour through Hebrews. So we're going to get started right away this morning. Okay, we're to verse number 10 in Hebrews chapter 8 that says, "For this is the covenant," speaking of the new covenant, the second covenant, the covenant of Jesus Christ. God is telling us through Scripture, through this verse, "For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts." This new covenant will make men want to obey the new laws, to be satisfied with the new covenant. But look what it says. It says the house of Israel. That's the Jewish nation. That is not us. This covenant started with Israel, and when Israel rejected Christ and put him to death, God opened a second covenant to us, the Gentiles. Remember, Gentiles are those of us that are not Jewish. You have the Jews, you have the Gentiles. The rest of the world are Gentiles, but it's all opened up to Jesus Christ now, the second covenant. And how do we accept that second covenant? Romans 10:13 says, "And whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved." And we'll get into that a little bit more. Now, the second part of Hebrews chapter 8, verse 10 says this, "And I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people." What a great promise. And it's through his son, Jesus Christ. Now we can call God, in the second covenant, we can call God Father. Isn't that awesome? In the first covenant, in the Old Testament, nowhere does it say that God was called Father. He was God. But he became personal to us through our relationship, through our faith in Jesus Christ. He becomes our Father. What a great promise. That's what it says right here in Revelation 21, verse 7. "He that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he will be my son." We become sons and daughters in the family of God as our Father by overcoming. How do you overcome? He that overcometh shall inherit. Listen, the only way to have an inheritance with God is to be in his family. The only way to be in his family is, let me take you right to the next verse. 1 John 5:5 says this, "Who is he that overcometh?" Revelation 21:7 says, "He that overcometh shall inherit." And then I'm taking this verse that says, well, how do we overcome? What is the standard to overcome? It says, "Who is he that overcometh?" Here it is. "Overcometh the world, but he that believeth that Jesus is the Son of God." You believe. It's by faith. It's by faith. You become a child of God simply and powerfully and permanently by your faith. The faith in what? The cross, the death of Christ, the resurrection, the works of Christ. You believe to the extent that you trust. I shared an example of the tightrope person going across Niagara Falls on a tightrope with a wheelbarrow, and they believed They believed when they saw him go across the first time, and they were asked, "Do you believe you can go back?" And they said, "Yes." And they said, "Will you get in that wheelbarrow?" And he says, "Oh no, I don't trust." There's a difference between trusting and believing. Believing does not save. It's believing to the extent that you trust. That's what happens in marriage, right? When that person says, I love you, and the covenant at a wedding is that they'll be forever together. They have allegiance to each other. They have a covenant. You believe that. You trust that, right? Yeah. You believe you believe a person enough that when they say they love you, you trust that. And you marry them, right? See, belief, the next part of belief is what happens when we believe. We trust. And that's what salvation is. Salvation is believing on Jesus Christ to the extent you trust him for your safe eternity. Here's the problem. Most people don't think about eternity. They're so caught up in the world, that they're so caught up in the pleasure of this world, or the demands of this world, or the works of this world. And they don't think about the world to come. They don't believe it because you're not in the Word. People's not in the Word. The Word tells us that eternity is coming. We have an appointment with death, then comes the judgment. See, there's something after death. It's called judgment. The judgment is heaven or hell. That's the judgment. Heaven or hell. If God were to ask you just this morning, what have you done with my son, Jesus? What would be your answer? Have you said, denied him? Have you said, I trust him? And God says, well, how much have you trusted him? How much are you in the Word? Listen, if you trusted Christ for your salvation, how many people you've told that to? Because what you have, they need. There's no greater need than to have victory over death. None. Nothing greater than that. All right. Continue on. Hebrews chapter 8, verse 11. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord, for all shall know me from the least to the greatest. The new covenant that we have in our hearts, we know right from wrong, don't we? We know stealing is wrong. We know lying is wrong. We know anger is wrong. There's righteous anger, but most of the time our anger, because we're offended about something, or discouraged about something, or surprised about something. You know, the way I taught driver training, and do I have enough time to share this? I think I do. I would teach kids how not to be an angry driver. And the way not to be an angry driver is anticipate mistakes of people, so when they happen, when they pull out in front of you, instead of being surprised and beeping your horn and raising your fist, it almost makes you chuckle when you say, yep, I knew they were going to do that. See, when you anticipate something and you're not surprised by it, you're probably not going to be angry about it. Boy, if we can live our life like that. Husband worked all day, came home, and wanted to come home to a loving wife, and the loving wife kind of had a bad day. So instead of greeting him with a lot of love, she's greeting him with kind of a depressed attitude, an unhappy attitude. How do you handle that? Well, you handle it that you always anticipate that someone has a need in other words, don't always expect you're going to get the best from a person. Expect that person might not be ready to give you their best and help meet their need instead of being concerned about your need. It's that anticipation. It's when we're surprised or disappointed in life is when we usually do the wrong things. I don't get disappointed too often because I anticipate probably not, the person that says they're going to do something probably won't do it as well as I think they're going to do it, or might not even do it at all. Or you might do and do and do and never get a thank you back. How do you deal with that? Oh, I've grown enough that I just say, I didn't really do it for them necessarily, God, I did it for you. I know you're a rewarder of things that we do right for you. Oh, wow. What a day today. What a day that we're under the second covenant. We're under the covenant of Christ. Oh, I pray that you come and you know Jesus Christ today. Love you guys.